Hey, good afternoon. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome. Welcome to Satsang. Would anyone like to read the invocatory verses to us?
O Sri Ramana, bestow your grace upon me so that I may in experience flawlessly attain the unequaled and unsurpassed essence of the practice of self-knowledge, the excellent path, who am I, which you have discovered to be the central and foremost among all the various paths. O Sri Ramana, the heart, who through your grace protects me at every moment by guiding me along the correct path. Rise from within and teach me the true import of your divine and unequal teachings, so that I may know them in their undefiled, pristine purity. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Om.
Thank you so much, Jimmy. Thank you to Bhagavan Ramana for these wonderful teachings. What is the excellent path? What is the excellent path? What is the path that Bhagavan discovered to be the central and foremost among all the various paths? All the various paths, all the multitude of paths, all the spiritual paths. Which of these paths did Bhagavan discover to be the central and foremost among all the various paths? What is the excellent path? Would anyone like to say? Would anyone like to give the answer? I know when I ask these questions, sometimes you may not be sure if I'm asking for an answer or if I'm going to give you the answer. I know. Jimmy, welcome.
Hi, Tom. Um, Turning within and investigating the sense of I.
Exactly. Exactly. Thank you, Jimmy. Unless you wanted to say anything. Did you want to say anything else? What is the excellent path? Excellent. Excellent means that which excels, that which is really, really, really good, highly effective, efficacious. The excellent path. Who am I? Which Bhagavan has discovered to be the central and foremost among all the various paths. All the various paths. Which one has he discovered to be the central and foremost? Path. Who am I? So, which path are you following? Which path are you following? Now, we call it the path. Who am I? Or as Jimmy said, turn within and investigate the I sense, the sense of I. Also known as self-knowledge, the path of self-knowledge. Know yourself. Know thyself. What am I? Who am I? This is the path of self-inquiry, self-knowledge. Investigate what I am. The path of investigating what I am. Path of self-inquiry, self-investigation, self-discovery. Discover what I am. This is obviously, well, for people who are not familiar with the invocatory verse, what I'm reading from is the invocatory verses that we read at most of the satsang meetings we have. Right? Most of you will recognize the wording I'm using because we read it at, I don't know, 80% of the satsangs we meet in, we read these verses out. We have done for some time now. Why do we read them out? Because they summarize the teaching. They summarize the entire teaching. Remind us of what the teaching is and isn't. The teaching isn't, oh, who are you? Or what is that? Or what is this? Who is he? Who is she? Who is that? What is that? No. The teaching isn't to investigate all these other things. The central, you can do that. We're not saying you can't do that. We're not telling you what to or what not to do. But the central and foremost path, as discovered by Bhagavan Ramana, is not to investigate all those other things which constitute the various other paths. but to investigate one thing, the thing that is closest to us, the one that, the one thing that causes all the issues. We may not realize it causes all the issues, but our misunderstanding or misapprehension of what we are is the source of all multiplicity, duality, and problems. We could say the source of all sin. The mother of all sin. And how to correct this mother of all sins is to investigate what we are. Now we talk about this as a path. Here in this verse, in this invocatory verse, it's spoken of as a path. Self-inquiry. This is the path of self-inquiry. Is it a path? We talk about, we might say to ourselves, okay, I want to do some self-inquiry now. Or we might say to ourselves, oh, I did some self-inquiry just now. I did some self-inquiry yesterday. I'm going to do some self-inquiry in the next hour. I'm going to do some self-inquiry tomorrow. How's your self-inquiry practice going? How's my self-inquiry practice going? We may think of it like anything else, like any other activity, like tennis. I'm going to play some tennis, tomorrow. I played some tennis yesterday. Or you might think of it like a yoga practice. I did some yoga this morning. I'm going to do some yoga tomorrow. Have you done some yoga? I've done some yoga. I haven't done yoga today. Maybe I'll do some tomorrow. We think of self-inquiry like this, perhaps. Oh, I'm going to do let me do some self-inquiry today. Oh, I can't be bothered to do self-inquiry today. You understand? Can we have this attitude towards self-inquiry? Can we? Is it legitimate to have this attitude towards self-inquiry? And do you understand the question I'm posing? If we have a spiritual practice, there are certain things that are assumed, we could say. There are certain assumptions we're making. If we have a spiritual practice, like a yoga of some kind, or even if it's another type of practice, like practicing playing tennis, which is also a type of practice. It may not be a spiritual practice, but it's a practice. There's certain assumptions. The basic assumption is there's a me, there's a person, there's a me, a doer, a subject that is engaged in an activity, a practice, right? If you're going to do some physical yoga, some hatha yoga practice, then there's a person, let's say Tom, who's going to do some activity, hatha yoga, or play tennis or something. And it is totally legitimate to think of self-inquiry in that way too. It's totally legitimate. How else can the mind think of self-inquiry apart from in this way? The mind, when the mind thinks of doing self-inquiry, it will think of it as an activity to be carried out by the I, by the subject. Just like tennis is an activity to be carried out by me, or any other activity. If I wanted to cook a meal, I think, well, I'm going to do that. So it's legitimate, it's totally fine to think of self-inquiry in those terms, I say. But the difference is that when you're doing self-inquiry, you're challenging that very assumption that there is an I doing something. Or we are, if not, maybe challenging isn't the right word, but we're questioning that very assumption. We say, okay, I'm going to play tennis. Okay, I'm going to cook some food. Okay, I'm going to eat some food. Okay, I'm going to do this. Okay, I'm going to do that. Self-inquiry is, what is this I? Who is this I? What am I really? I say I'm going to do all these things, or I'm not going to do other things. What is this I that I keep on referring to? Who is this I? Who am I? So self-inquiry, even though the mind will necessarily conceive of it as another activity performed by the I, it is fundamentally different to all other activities because it is investigating the subject that is said to be performing the activities. The subject that is performing all these activities, this is not actually what we are at all. This is not what we are at all. Thinking ourselves to be this subject that performs all the activities, this entity that is doing things, doing these things, doing those things, maybe even doing self-inquiry. This is the core ignorance. This is the root of all our problems. This is the mother of all sins. This is a source of all our problems. This is the one problem that causes all the other problems. So the practice, if we can even call it a practice, the practice of self-inquiry is unlike all other doings, all other practices, for it's challenging or questioning or investigating the assumptions that underlie all doings, all practices. And that makes it fundamentally different to all other practices. If we're playing a game of cards on a table, you're playing a game of cards, I don't know, game of Snap. game of rummy, game of bridge, game of poker, playing a card, some game of cards on the table. And there are all these different card games you can play, which represent all the different activities you can undertake. Some of them will be spiritual practices, some of them will be non-spiritual practices. Some of them will be spiritual practices, some of them won't be spiritual practices. They're all the different activities. They all are based on the table. All the card games occur on the table. Self-inquiry is to look and see if there's even, what is this table that we're playing cards on? It's fundamentally different to all other activities. All other activities are concerned with the cards. Self-inquiry is concerned upon that which we assume to be there in order to play the cards, the table. When we look at this I, which is the table, when we look at this I, we look at ourselves, we realize that is not what we are. And without the table, you can't play the cards. Bhagavan used a different analogy. He used the analogy of the beads of a necklace or a bracelet on a string. All the various things and activities are the beads on the bracelet. And the string that binds them all together is the sense I, or I am the body mind. It's the I am the body mind thought, the I am the body mind idea. I am a person idea. This is called being a jiva in Sanskrit. Jiva means the idea I'm a person, I'm a body mind. When we investigate what we are, we discover this is not true. This is not what I am. And this is akin to cutting the string, and all the beads collapse. The whole form of the bracelet collapses. All the problems fall away. The whole of duality disappears because we've removed the one thing that underlies the whole of duality, the whole of samsara, the whole of the illusion just collapses. This is why this is the central, foremost path. And I didn't realize this, but many people don't realize. They say to me, why did Bhagavan teach this self-inquiry when he himself did something else? He underwent this death experience. Why is he teaching this self-inquiry? But many people don't realize he did self-inquiry. He did self-inquiry, and he just taught what works for him. The only way to liberation is through self-inquiry. You don't have to call it self-inquiry. You may not even realize it's self-inquiry, but it's the same process. All the Buddhas, all the jnanis, those two words are synonyms, by the way. All the Buddhas, all the jnanis, all the realized sages, they've just come through this one doorway of self-inquiry. Know thyself. Who am I? Turn within and investigate the I sense to discover what you truly are. You know, I've got two sons, and sometimes they're making a noise. Would you believe it? Children making noise. And sometimes you're like, well, which one is making the noise? You know? And maybe I think, oh, it's the bigger one, the older one. Yeah. But when I investigate, when I go closer, I realize I was mistaken. Oh, it's not the older one, it's the younger one. He just sounds like the older one to me. But I went towards them. I looked, I investigated, and I realized my mistake. You see? You hear the noise. You know it's one of your kids making the noise. You don't know, you think, oh, it's this one. You go towards it, you look, you investigate, oh, then you realize, oh, as you get closer, you realize, oh, I've made a mistake. It's the other one. You see the analogy I'm making? Do you understand the analogy I'm making? Self-inquiry. We think, oh, I'm the body mind. And then you go closer, you go inwards to the sense I, and then you realize, oh, no, I'm not the body mind. I thought I was the body mind. I'm not. I realize now. This is the fruit of the investigation. Notice what this is not. This is not self-hypnosis. It is not saying, I am the self, I am the self. That would be like me hearing a noise that one of my sons is making. And then I think, oh, maybe I think it's the older son making the noise. And then I just say to myself, it is the younger son, it is the younger son, it is the younger son, it is the, just try and convince myself it's the other one. What's that going to do? That's not going to do anything. That might remove my belief that is the older son, but now I'm with a new belief. It is the younger son, but I haven't discovered anything in my own experience. Do you see? I have to go towards them. I have to go towards the noise they're making. Maybe I'm downstairs. The noise is coming from upstairs. And as I go upstairs, I start to realize, oh, actually, it's coming from the younger one's bedroom, not the older one's bedroom. And I tell them to shut up. Let's tell the right kid to shut up. Shut up. I'm having satsang. Be quiet. You see, it's a genuine investigation, is my point. It's not about holding a belief. You know that belief, I am the self, I am the self, I am Brahman, Aham Brahmasmi. This may help remove the false belief, but you need to go more, you need to do more than that. You need to discover the truth in your own experience. It is not a mechanical thing. This is also something self-inquiry is not. It is not a mechanical thing. You have to follow the clues. So I might hear the noise of my children coming in from upstairs and I'm downstairs. I go upstairs. And then I hear the noise and it's at the back of the house. So I go to the back of the house. And then I realize I can hear the noise through the open window and they're actually in the garden outside. I'm just hearing it through the open window upstairs. And then I've got to go back down the stairs again and go out into the garden, you see. So you have to follow the clues as they're presented to you. You have to follow your eye sense. Where is this eye? You have to follow it genuinely. Now, listen to Bhagavan and his advice, but you have to discover it yourself. It's a genuine discovery. It's not a belief. The only thing you need for this practice is to have a sense of I. And everybody has a sense of I. Everyone. If you're not sure what that means, Bhagavan helps us. He says, to whom does all this arise? And the answer, he says, is to me. And then he says, who am I? So the first question he advocates is, to whom does all this arise? Say you're confused. You can say, to whom does the confusion arise? Say you're angry. You can say, to whom does the anger arise? Say you're just thinking about something. You say, to who do the thoughts arise? Say you're looking at something. You say, to whom does this visual appearance arise? To whom does this looking arise? To me. Now we have a pointer as to what I am. I am that which is experiencing, observing, witnessing, receiving the impression of something. I'm receiving the impression of thinking. I'm receiving the impression of looking. I'm receiving the impression of hearing. To whom does the hearing occur? To whom do these things arise? To me. And that is what I'm looking for, the subject. That is the I. Some people who've been listening to non-dual teachings, they convince themselves there's no I. I can't find an I. They say, I cannot find any I. Of course, that very sentence gives it away. Because they say, I cannot find the I. Well, who is that which cannot find? There's an entity that cannot find the I, isn't there? They say, I look, and there's no one here. There's no I here. To whom? Do you see? In his teachings, Bhagavan has given us everything we need. We need very little. Perhaps there are a couple of other things we need. Of course, it's all explained in the invocatory verses. I'll just put it this way. I'll put it differently. I'll say the other things we need: silence, grace. And the first comes from the second. The wonderful thing about self-inquiry is that we all have all the skills and knowledge we need already to do it. It is not like playing tennis or learning to play the violin or learning to speak French or Portuguese or another language in which someone else may need to teach you. For the path of self-inquiry, we innately have all the tools, all the skills, all the knowledge we need is already within us. We should not think, oh, I need to search for this person, that person to teach me how to do self-inquiry. Now you can, that may be helpful. But we should also trust that we have everything we need within us. Just as I, as a human being, have what I need to discover which of my two sons may be making this hypothetical noise. I didn't need to go to a special course or have some training to figure out which of my two sons is making the ruckus. They're not, by the way, they're absolutely fine today. Or at least right now. The day's not over yet. My point is that as a human being, if you're a functional, normal, healthy, functioning human being, you have what you need to discover these things. You have a functioning mind, you have ears that work, your hearing apparatus is intact, you can figure it out. But self-inquiry, we don't even need a functioning mind or hearing apparatus or ears or eyes, you see. Everything we need is within us. It's deeper within us than the body and the mind. We can call it grace of God or Bhagavan's grace. but it is just ourself. Truly, it is just ourself. So I'll come back to an earlier point I made. If I say, I'm going to do some self-inquiry, I'm just going to do some self-inquiry. Or my self-inquiry practice went really well today. Or, oh, my self-inquiry practice didn't go very well today. Or, oh, I don't want to do self-inquiry. Oh, can't be bothered to do self-inquiry. Or I haven't done self-inquiry for ages. Or maybe I'll do some tomorrow. You know what? I'm going to go on. I've got some time off next week and I want to spend 3 days doing self-inquiry next week or something. Whatever it you have, whatever thoughts you have, right? You're treating self-inquiry as a practice, like any other doing. By the way, the word for this in Sanskrit is karma. A karma means a doing. Like if I'm playing tennis, that's a karma. If I'm going to do some special breathing exercises, that's a karma. Anything I do is karma. Karma means action or doing. So you're thinking of self-inquiry just like any other karma. But self-inquiry, while it is fine for us to think of self-inquiry these ways, practically we have to. It is not a karma. It isn't because it is questioning, investigating. Who am I that is doing this karma? It's fundamentally, I cannot stress this enough. It is fundamentally different to any practice. You may think, well, it doesn't seem that fundamentally different. Instead of doing something, I'm just questioning who is doing. Well, so that's not that bad, not that different, not that big a difference. Instead of playing tennis, I'm saying who is playing tennis. I cannot stress enough. It is a fundamentally different, in quotes, activity, different practice. It's a different, fundamentally different venture to any other undertaking. It's fundamentally different. Because when you say, "Oh, I don't feel like doing self-inquiry," who doesn't? To whom does this thought arise? When you say, "Oh, I'll practice self-inquiry tomorrow," who? To whom is this thought arising? Who's going to practice self-inquiry tomorrow? When you say, "Oh, I'm going to do my self-inquiry went really well," to whom does this thought arise? Oh, my self-inquiry was really bad today. It's terrible. I had a terrible self-inquiry session. To whom does this thought arise? To whom does this thought arise? Oh, I've got 3 days next week where I've got some free time. I want to spend all those 3 days doing self-inquiry. To whom does this thought arise? To whom does this thought arise? Do you see? It's fundamentally different. Now, if you are thinking of it in those terms, that is fine. That is legitimate. There's nothing wrong with saying I've got some time next week. I want to do some self-inquiry next week. Nothing wrong with that. Do, by all means, do that. That's no problem. That's great, in fact. Practically, that's probably what you have to do. But there's also another aspect. It's like saying, I'm going to play a game of cards with someone. But self-inquiry is smashing up the table, you know? It's smashing up the table on which the cards is played. It's questioning, what is this table? Is there a table? Or is this table just an illusion? You see, all karmas are messing around with the beads on the bracelet. And self-inquiry is cutting the string that binds them all together. It's fundamentally different. It's fundamentally different. You know, if you're ice skating and you're doing all these different tricks, You're learning all these different ice skating techniques and skills. Self-inquiry is questioning if the ice is there and discovering it isn't. There's no ice. The underlying assumption you're making in order to undertake these karmas is not real. There is no string that holds all these beads together. There is no ice that you can skate on. There is no table you can play the cards on. There is no I, but it is not a verbal or conceptual assertion. It's a discovery in your heart by Bhagavan's grace through inward investigation. So by all means, the mind will conceive of it as a karma like any other, like as an activity, as a doing. But it is not like that. It is not like that. All karmas go outwards. This is the only, in quotes, karma that goes within. That is what is meant. So when you're being silent, when you're being still, that's fine. That's good. That's wonderful practice. But then eventually you have to say, to whom is this stillness arising? I'll stop there for now. I'll invite any responses from you in case you want to ask anything, if you want to share anything.